Hi YouTube, welcome back to Smarter Practice. I'm Taylor Child. You're joining me here in my living room next to my piano. Today we're going to talk a little bit about designing a technical regimen so that you can improve your technique and conquer more repertoire. This is a pretty hotly debated subject and everybody has their opinion that they think is perfectly correct. I'm going to tell you, I don't know, I don't have any idea what your technique regimen should be exactly. I think the only person who can know that is you and perhaps your teacher working together. I think the right technical regimen for you will depend largely on your learning style, your personality, the things that you like or dislike, what level of repertoire you're at, and what your goals are for the future. Learning technique is a lot like learning to walk. I like to compare it to that anyway, and that you can learn to walk outside in a forest, next to a stream where you can hear the birds chirping and the water running and enjoy all of the beauty of a sunrise and nature and all of that good stuff. Or you can learn to walk in a laboratory, on a treadmill, under the close supervision of somebody with a clipboard looking very carefully at you, making sure that you've isolated every movement and motion and thing just perfectly, and you're executing everything exactly the way it should be, and you have very little risk. Now, there are strengths and weaknesses and advantages and disadvantages to each approach, and I kind of recommend a hybrid approach. So the one extreme, where you're outside in the forest, that's only using pieces to gain technique, and there's some merit to that. Andras Schiff famously indicates that that's what he does. He warms up, he plays Bach. He says, Bach gives me all I need. And it's true, you can probably find all you need in Bach. But if you're not quite at that level yet, or if you're not the same personality type as him, let's go over some elements of designing your technical regimen to meet your needs. So the first element that I'd suggest to you, it's very important, is time. How much time you're going to devote to technique. I suggest a hard and fast limit, certainly no more than 20%, and for most people somewhere between 5% and 20% of your total practice time. Now that's not a lot. If you're practicing an hour a day, that's between 3 minutes, if you're at the 5% end, and 12 minutes at the 20% end of things. Now 20%, I would only be at that level, that amount of practice time for technique if you haven't yet learned your major and minor scales. You're still kind of accumulating knowledge of these patterns. If you have learned the major and minor scales and you're just working on speed and touch and some of these different things we'll talk about in a minute and in other videos, certainly I wouldn't be at 20% unless you have a very specific goal that says you need to be there. And I definitely wouldn't go over that because no one gets excited to play a scale in front of a bunch of people. That's not very interesting. We play music to play music, not to show how fast we can play our scales or arpeggios. Their technique is a means to an end, not an end in itself. So, a hard and fast limit on how much time you devote to the enterprise. Somewhere in the 5 to 20% neighborhood. And the next principle I'll give you is quality. It's very important that any moment you spend on technique, you know what you're trying to accomplish, and you're doing it very, very well. If you are grading yourself from an A to an F, like when we were back in school, you would want to be an A on everything. So that if that means you spend your 12 minutes only going on a scale and only going slowly enough that you can make sure you hit every note evenly and nicely and with good motion in your hands and arms, then that's what you do. You don't move on to your inversions or your arpeggio, you skip those things for that day and do those another day. You want to be always playing at the A+ level. It doesn't do you any good to say, okay, well I kind of flubbed through that scale, but I need to move on. It was kind of a C+ or C-, but I need to do the arpeggio and I'll do that one at maybe a B- level, and the inversions I'm a little better at. We'll do that at a B+ level. It doesn't do you any good. That's a very slow road to making progress. Your next element that I would give you for designing your technical regimen is practicality, okay? And what I mean by that is keeping your exercises relevant to the pieces that are likely to come up in the repertoire you're studying. You know, if you're in your first couple years of piano lessons, it does you no good to spend time trying to do, I don't know, like chromatic scale in thirds or something. It doesn't do you any good to spend time on that if you're unlikely to encounter that challenge anytime in the near future. If you're not going to be playing pieces that require that, you're doing yourself more harm than good by trying to tackle those techniques before you're ready for them. Because it takes a certain level of experience and time and energy devoted to this exercise and this enterprise of playing the piano to be able to master those movements so that you can spend time on it and learn to do it well. Because you could practice repeated octaves and practice really bad motions that are going to injure you later, and you don't want to build bad habits. It's much better to let your technique develop incrementally. So always keep it practical. The next principle I would suggest to you is creativity in your technique practice. This one gets lost on a lot of people. It's very common, even still, and it was more so a century ago, for students to just pop open a Hanon book, sit down at the piano, switch their brain firmly to the off position, open up a novel over here and a TV show over here or something. Well, not in the 1800s, but you know what I mean. And just zone out and play through the Hanon book. There is no reason to do that, and I actually think that's harmful. I think every moment that you spend at the piano should be a creative moment. It should be an inspiring moment. It should be something that excites you and enlivens you and animates you. Even your technique practice, and I'll show you how you can make your technique practice do those things. The key part of doing that is making it creative. Now, I say that, and I can honestly tell you, I don't think that I have warmed up exactly the same way from one day to the next in over 10 years, probably longer. I don't think I will ever run out of ideas, run out of ways to make it unique. I think I will live the rest of my life, hopefully another 150 years, and never repeat myself at the piano, warming up. You can do that too. Warming up can be creative, interesting, and engaging. And it should be. It should be like making music. It should be an artistic brain exercise so that your brain is never off. That way, every moment when you're playing a piece, you're always looking for a way to capture the thing that's special about that particular passage, that particular phrase. Why did Chopin write this? Why did Rachmaninoff write this? What does this mean? What's the emotional content of this? If you're practicing that in your warm-ups, it's so much easier. It comes so naturally to just peel it out of a piece of music when it's presented to you. So keep it creative. Finally, last principle I would give you to follow, and this one is as critical as all the others. They're all critical. They're all level 10s, okay? They all matter a ton. Playing the piano should always, always, always be comfortable. If you feel tightness or pain or stiffness or aches or anything that's at all unpleasant, that's a pretty good indicator that something's not quite right. And you need to talk with a teacher, either do a Skype lesson with somebody, or an in-person lesson is obviously better if you can make that happen. Find a way to have that looked at so that you can correct what's wrong with your playing. Because playing, I don't care what repertoire you're playing, the no pain, no game mantra, that belongs at the gym, maybe. It does not belong here at the piano. If you have pain, something is wrong and you need to address that. To review, no more than somewhere in the 5 to 20% of your practice time neighborhood. Quality time, always play at the A+ level, never a single half letter grade below that. Practicality, work on techniques that are relevant to you right now, today, in the pieces you're studying and the pieces you're going to be studying this week and this month and next month. Keep it creative, Don't be boring. Don't ever switch your brain to the off position, and don't ever think of playing mechanically. Even if you are doing something that is, technically speaking, a mechanical exercise, don't play it mechanically. Keep it musical and interesting and engaging for the brain. And keep it comfortable. Everything should feel great. Okay? That's our intro to the technique series. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. I look forward to making some more of these videos on developing piano technique, and I'll see you next time.